Hi, it's Dr. Manali. Today I'm going to be talking about locum tenens. I get asked about it a lot because I've been practicing locum tenens since I graduated fellowship in 2011. So what is locum tenens? Basically that means a locum tenens doctor is a contract doctor and you're filling in, usually for somebody who's out or when they're hiring for a new doctor. What I find in cardiology, which is true in a lot of specialties, is that as baby boomer doctors retire, millennial doctors are really only wanting to work near major cities mostly. And so small to mid-sized cities have a much harder time hiring new cardiologists, and so a lot of the times those positions get filled by a locum tenens cardiologist like myself, either short-term or long-term, depending on how long it takes them to hire a new cardiologist. And so the way you find locum tenens cardiology jobs is through an agency, or any locum tenens job is through an agency. You can find it on your own, but a lot of times it's harder to find on your own unless you happen to know a lot of people practicing in small towns. And so then you can go through an agency, and there's hundreds of agencies you can work with. And agencies usually cover your malpractice insurance and also your hotel, flight, rental car. The one big thing you have to cover on your own is your health insurance. You are a 1099 employee, so you don't get health insurance through them. You have to buy it on your own. And also you have to cover things like meals, but a lot of that is tax deductible. The main reason kind of to consider locum tenens is that you can live where you want to live. I live in Manhattan, and I would travel to different parts of the country to work, usually in the Midwest a lot of times. And then also you can control, you have a lot more control over your schedule. And so right now I work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, but I have worked Monday to Friday and flown back on the weekends. I've also worked 10 days straight and then been off for 2 weeks. I've worked a lot of different schedules. It kind of depends on what you want to do and also what the hospital or group you're working with wants. And so that's one of the main reasons to consider it, is like you can live where you want, and also the schedule is very flexible. And then the other things to consider, obviously the job itself, like what you want in the job, but it is a short-term job. But the other thing I think about is how big the town is, because you don't usually actually see the place you're working. It's a phone interview until you actually show up. So my requirement used to be that there was a Starbucks there, because I felt like if there's not a Starbucks there, it's probably too small for me to be at. And it's surprising, but there are actually towns that need a cardiologist but don't need a Starbucks. I don't know how that is, that it's so small, it needs a cardiologist, but it doesn't need a Starbucks, or it's not big enough to have a Starbucks. But I used to say that. But then it turns out that there are towns with grocery store Starbucks, and that's not the same thing. I feel like it's a trick. They're trying to trick you and make you think that this is a bigger town than it really is. So then my requirement was there has to be a freestanding Starbucks. And I know this sounds silly, but it actually correlates well with what else is in the town. A lot of times towns that are so small that they don't have a freestanding Starbucks also don't have like a normal place to stay. Because even if like if you're going to be there long term, you may want an extended stay place that has a kitchen, and really small towns don't even have that. And then I also feel like it correlates with how good the quality of the produce is in the grocery store, like the fruits and vegetables. So I mean, if you don't have a kitchen anyways, it doesn't matter. But it correlates with that and what other places there are, to eat. Because if there's just a McDonald's, you can eat healthy at McDonald's, you can, but you're going to be eating lunch and dinner there like 7 days a week. So it's something to consider, is like, what else is there? So now my requirements are there has to be a Panera and a Chipotle, because that way I can ensure that I can eat healthy. Because the first job I had, I didn't think about things like that, and I put on weight because I was eating unhealthy, because there just really weren't that many options, versus like Manhattan. If you want to eat a healthy salad, there's like 20 options within a 5-minute walk. Those kinds of things get much harder when you get to a smaller town. Now, actually, you should consider the job as well, but this is the other thing I think about, is like the actual town, because you're going to spend a lot of time working. It's expensive to hire locum tenens physicians, and so a lot of times the hospital waits until they're short two doctors. And so you may be covering more than one person, more than one physician, and so you're usually really busy, and you usually don't even have time to cook or meal prep or anything like that. So I find usually most of the time I'm picking up salads or rice bowls or something like that, and so if there's no option to eat healthy, it makes it much more difficult. The latest town I work in has an Orange Theory too, which is very exciting for me. I have Manhattan membership at Orange Theory, so I can use that there too. But that's not on my requirements, because that is hard to find, a small town with an Orange Theory too. But my requirements are there has to be a Panera and a Chipotle, and it can't be smaller than that. But you can make up your own requirements, and then there's actually the job too itself, obviously, and the quality of the job. But you're not there, long term. So it kind of depends. Usually you're not there long term. But it's job to job dependent. The main reason to consider it is that you do get a lot of schedule flexibility. So I meet a lot of people these days, doctors, residents, medical students, who are part of like startups or have side businesses, and then you're not really looking to work full-time clinically, and this is a good option, is that you can do locum tenens, so you can work clinically part-time and still work on whatever side business or startup that you're working on. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Manali Desai. I'll see you next time.